What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 64 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Monday, March 31st, 2025. I'm your host, Zach Malin. But before we get started, please subscribe below. Follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the world of baseball, as both New York teams were in action this weekend, an opening day weekend in Major League Baseball, and the Yankees came out real hot with three straight, a series sweep over the Milwaukee Brewers. And this weekend was all about the home runs for the New York Yankees. Four of them for Aaron Judge in 3 games, 3 of them for Jazz Chisholm Jr. in 3 games. Austin Wells added 2, as well as Anthony Volpe, who added 2. You got the new guys involved in Cody Bellinger, as well as Paul Goldschmidt. Plus the fact that this Yankees pitching rotation really stepped up this weekend, and you really have to like what you saw. Maybe you got a little bit of anger towards a guy like Marcus Stroman, who struggled just a little bit, but the Yankees still able to find the win in that game yesterday against the Milwaukee Brewers, even with Stroman letting up those 3 earned runs. I still think this Yankees rotation is going to need a little bit of time and a little bit of going to need a little bit of work, especially towards the bottom, especially with guys like Carlos Carrasco, Will Warren still getting settled in to be starting pitchers. I do think that the Yankees are in a good spot, though, with those top 3 guys in Rodon, Fried, as well as Marcus Stroman. Fried's going to settle in. I know he let up 7 hits the other day on Saturday, but you really have to like what you saw when it comes to his stuff. He's still got 4 strikeouts, and he's going to really settle in and be probably the Yankees' ace for this season in the Bronx, especially with Garrett Cole out for the year. So I do like what the Yankees had to offer this weekend, and you got to be very optimistic as a Yankee fan. I know it's only 3 games and it's very early, but this offense is really, really rolling. And I said it last week. I think a lot of people are doubting this Yankees team this year because they look at the rotation and they say, all right, I don't see much there. They also look at the injury to Giancarlo Stanton and say, all right, well, this lineup is lacking a little bit of power. This lineup's got everything: power, base running. They got a lot of guys who could play small ball as well, and that's going to be key for the Yankees as they put up a monster 36 runs in their first 3 games of the season. So you got to like what you saw if you're a Yankee fan. They now head into a 3-game set against Arizona that they'll host the Diamondbacks at Yankee Stadium. Warren, Rodon, and then Carrasco will all pitch in Tuesday through Thursday's games against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Make sure you tune in to all of those games, and we'll recap them on Thursday's episode. Let's go to the other side of New York as the New York Mets lost 2 of 3 to the Houston Astros, and a Astros lineup that's lacking just a bit and lacking a lot based on recent years. And of course, the loss of Alex Bregman was a big one to this Astros lineup, but they kind of picked up where they left off, and some good contributors, and they also have a lot of guys who can play small ball as well. That worked for them this weekend against the New York Mets, who line up a lot of expectations coming into the year, but they did not live up to them early in this season, and that's maybe a little bit worrying. Obviously, it's only 3 games, so you can't really think too much into it. Of course, a guy like Francisco Lindor, who's 0 for 11 right now, 3 strikeouts, a 0.000 batting average. So that's something that he's going to have to pick up as the season goes on, but he is no stranger to slow starts. And of course, the addition of Juan Soto has been a good one so far. That's what Met fans wanted to hear. He's batting .333. He's got 3 hits in 9 at-bats. Also has 4 walks. So really getting on base and doing a good job of that. A 1.316 OPS in just 3 games with the New York Mets. Also had that home run that really got the Met fans and the Mets faithful really rocking down in Houston. So you really got to take the positives out of this series. And when it comes to that, Juan Soto is one of them in the lineup. Plus the fact that they're pitching 3 guys that you really don't expect to be the top of the rotation: Griffin Canning, Tyler McGill, as well as Clay Holmes. All 3 of those guys pretty solid outings in the end. Obviously, you look at Holmes, who started opening day and ended up getting the loss, but he only allowed 5 hits, only 2 earned runs. He did have the 4 walks that he's going to have to trim those down, but also had 4 strikeouts in 4 and 2/3. So you're really going to have to figure that out. And you really like if you what you saw from Clay Holmes early in this game, and obviously early in this season. Still a long way to go for Clay Holmes to really get into that starter role and get used to being in the starting rotation. That's something that he hasn't done since 2018. Tyler McGill then the next night did get credited with the win and had a really solid outing here. 5 innings, and he only allowed 3 hits, 1 earned run, as well as only just 1 walk, but he had 6 strikeouts as well. So McGill really stepped up for the Mets in this one. Griffin Canning on the other end went heavy slider here in this game. Really the most sliders he's thrown in a game in his career. And it worked well for him for the early parts of this game. And then he got a couple of them right in the middle of the zone, and that hurt him. Of course, they gave up the 2 runs, and that was the difference in this game. A 2-1 loss for the New York Mets. So they end up getting some good contributions from their starting pitching. They also had some good contributions from their bullpen. No runs allowed in all of those outings and all of those innings for these pitchers. Very little hits and very little guys on base for Houston. So that's a positive sign. The bullpen looked really good, and the starting pitching, you got to be happy with it based on expectations so far, and even without their ace in Sean Manaea. But their lineup, besides Juan Soto, really needs to step up here because that's where a lot of the production is going to come from. You can't really rely on this starting rotation too much in my mind, especially down the road when you get closer to postseason time. You're really going to need this lineup to step up, and I think they will do that. Obviously, it's only 3 games, but you're waiting for a guy like Francisco Lindor, guys like Pete Alonso as well to really step up and help out a guy like Juan Soto in this Mets lineup. So we'll see what happens, but obviously the Mets now go into a 3-game set down in Miami before they come home for their home opener on April 4th against Toronto. You got Peterson, Senga, and then Clay Holmes once again Monday to Wednesday here against the Miami Marlins. Make sure you tune in to Thursday's episode, and we'll recap all of those games from this start for the New York Mets. And obviously baseball is here, and it's really great to have it back, and a lot of these teams really going for it early, and especially the Yankees look really good so far. Got to be happy if you're a New York Yankee fan. Let's move things to basketball, and both NBA as well as college. We'll start off with the NBA, as the New York Knicks were in action last night. A 110-93 victory over the Portland Trailblazers at MSG, and give credit to 2 guys, OG Anunoby as well as Mikal Bridges, each of them with 28 points in this one, and a dominant second half for the New York Knicks after they kind of struggled just a little bit, and maybe a little bit of a worrying sign for the Knicks in the first half. They were down 8 to a Trailblazers team that's now 32-43 on the season. They pick things up in the second half, and they outscore the Portland Trailblazers by 9 in the third, and then by 16 in the fourth. So that's a big-time victory for the New York Knicks, and a positive sign, especially coming down towards postseason time. Still without Jalen Brunson. He's going to come back soon, it looks like, probably within this next week or so. You got to really have this team rolling, especially with postseason coming up. Like I said, in just a couple of weeks, they have to really close things out strong and really head, into the postseason on a high note. So you really like what you saw from the New York Knicks, and I think that's a positive sign with Jalen Brunson coming back probably later this week. So the Knicks are in action now tomorrow night. A 7:30 start taken on the Philadelphia 76ers. This is one of 8 games remaining for the Knicks during the regular season. And just looking to close out that 3 seed, they still sit in the 3 seed spot. Boston has already clinched almost that 2 seed, and it's either going to be Boston or Cleveland at number 1. Looks like Cleveland will close it out with just a couple more wins here to be the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Then it'll be Boston. The Knicks are 8 games back of the Boston Celtics, so no way of catching them. And then you look at the Knicks now in 3rd place, 4 games up on the Indiana Pacers. You just got to win your games, probably 5 of the 8, and then you're in. If you are the New York Knicks, maybe even 4 of the 8, depending on tiebreakers and how things go with Indiana this week. So we'll see what happens, but close it out here, and really the home stretch here for the New York Knicks. You expect them to beat up on this Sixers team that's been eliminated from the playoffs already. So they're going to have a lot of guys out. Knicks have a couple of game time decisions here with Kevin McCullough Jr. as well as Deuce McBride, and you also got campaign, and of course the uh, out time for Jalen Brunson, who's going to be out for this one and a couple more until he gets back healthy. So we'll see what happens, but the Knicks are in action tomorrow night. 7:30 start. Make sure you tune in as they take on the Philadelphia 76ers at MSG. Let's finish things off today with a college basketball update and a big time weekend of Sweet 16 action as well as Elite Eight action. We'll just look at the Elite Eight games, and there were some really good ones. There were also some kind of boring ones, of course. Some of these teams really are just proving what they are, and a lot of 1 seeds is all you got to think about. It's going to be number ones all around for the first time since 2008 in the NCAA tournament. So kind of boring, you would say. Of course, no real Cinderella stories this year, but I think these 4 teams are really, really the best teams in college basketball. And these final 4 games are going to be really interesting, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, next weekend, Saturday, and then the national championship 1 week from today. Down in San Antonio. So looking at these Elite Eight games, and you look at Saturday where the Duke Blue Devils just took it to the Alabama Crimson Tide, 85-65. The Blue Devils win this one. They were up by 9 at halftime, and then they just started to pull away in the second half. Cooper Flagg is the real deal, as you would say. And what a performance once again for the Duke freshman, who's going to be the consensus #1 pick in the draft. Didn't play fantastic shooting-wise in this one, only shot 6 of 16, but he had 16 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and a block. I mean, just really big-time play from him. And then his buddy, Con Knipple, the freshman out of Milwaukee, who's also going to probably be a hot ticket in the NBA draft when it comes. 21 points in this one. He had 2 threes plus 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals. What a performance by the freshman for Duke. And he steps up big time with guys like MudWatch, the big time center, down low, 14 points, 9 rebounds. And then Tyrese Proctor leading the way, had 17 points and 5 rebounds, the point guard for Duke. Just what a player and what a tournament he's had so far. But a big-time win for the Blue Devils, who I would say had the easiest path to the Final Four. They'll get tested, obviously with a massive matchup coming up later this week. But then you look at the other games in this Elite Eight on Saturday, and Florida closes things out against Texas Tech, who had the lead for a little bit in that second half. Maybe those Gator fans were a little bit worried there down in Gainesville, but they really, really stepped up, and they really caught fire behind their guy in Walter Clayton Jr., who does it once again. A big-time performance and a big-time shot that he made to give Florida the lead, and I think that really just closed things out. You knew Florida would probably have this one in the bag. After that 3 went down, he had 30 points in this one, along with 4 assists. What a player he is, and he went 13 of 14 from the free throw line, gets fouled a lot, and makes you pay if you allow him to go to the charity strike. So he literally grabbed this Florida team on his back and carried them to the Final Four. Credit to him. What a player, and deserves all of the awards that he will get towards the end of this season. Obviously, this is a big-time reunion for Walter Clayton, a guy who, I mean, of course, went to Iona and a lot of mid-major schools, and then comes to Florida and just is taking over college basketball. So first trip to the Final Four for him, so he's very happy right now. And as Florida fans should be, they got a real player there in Walter Clayton Jr. On to Sunday's games, where this one was a little bit boring, the early one, as Houston, #1 in the Midwest region, took down #2 Tennessee. And this one just wasn't even close for a lot of it. Houston had a 34-15 lead at halftime, and Tennessee only 15 points at the halftime break. They then were not able to really cut into that deficit too much. I think the closest they got it was 10, but then Houston really pulled away a bunch of three-pointers, and they just closed things out. Emmanuel Sharp was the key contributor to that one for the Houston Cougars, who reached their seventh Final Four, and what a job Kelvin Sampson has done with this team, and they rightfully so deserve to be back in the Final Four once again. A 69-50 victory over Tennessee. And then the late one was pretty exciting and a little bit scary for Auburn fans. Johni Broome went down after an elbow injury, with an apparent elbow injury. Then he comes back into the game, drills a three, no problem. He's back to normal. So obviously we're gonna keep an eye on that as the week goes on. And of course, you look at that matchup ahead against the Florida Gators. I don't think Johni Broome's missing a Final Four game, one that could be his last as an Auburn Tiger and one of his last in college basketball. They get a 70-64 win over the Michigan State Spartans, who had a phenomenal year out of the Big Ten and, of course, won the regular season title. Jace Richardson still undecided on what he's going to do next year. What a player he is. Really proved his worth there for the Spartans this season. But Auburn moves on to the Final Four once again, and they will take on, like I said, the Florida Gators on Saturday. We'll preview all these games on Thursday, but it's Florida taking on Auburn at 6:09 on Saturday, and Houston taking on Duke at 8:49 on Saturday night. Both of these games down at the Alamodome in San Antonio, Texas. So make sure you tune into Thursday's episode. We'll give you all you need to know ahead of Saturday's matchups. But that'll do it for episode 64 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Mellon, but thanks for watching, and talk to you all on Thursday.